A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Welcome to another edition of Bearing Arms, Cam and Company. My name is Cam Edwards. I hope you had a great weekend. I felt so super productive this weekend. And you know what? When you do have a productive weekend, you're not just laying around on the couch. I don't know about you. I always feel a little bit better heading into a Monday. Glad that you're with us. We're going to be talking about the protest in Denver, Colorado. Not the protest, the civil disobedience, the call for Colorado Governor Jared Polis to issue an executive action banning all gun sales in the state of Colorado. And not only that, but telling every legal gun owner in the state, all right, it's time to hand them over. We're holding a gun buyback, a mandatory buyback, a compensated confiscation program, and you're going to have to hand over your guns. That's what Saira Rao with Here for the Kids was hoping to achieve and is hoping to achieve with this sit-in at the Colorado State Capitol. We're going to get to that in just a moment. But before we do, I know you guys have definitely noticed the U.S. dollar continues to buy less, right? Last year, the average IRA and 401k balance fell by more than 20%. If we've learned anything from the past few years, it's that anything can and will happen. Well, here's something that may help. A gold IRA. Gold may be a great option for you. That's right. Physical gold in your IRA. Many central banks are buying tons right now. So what does that tell you? Augusta Precious Metals is a gold IRA company that offers its customers the opportunity to invest in gold. You can call Augusta Precious Metals and learn how a gold IRA can help you. If you saved $100,000 or more for retirement, call Augusta Precious Metals and get their free ultimate guide to gold IRAs. Tell them you heard it here on our show, and they'll give you a free gold coin when you open a gold IRA. Contact Augusta Precious Metals and diversify your retirement today. Call 855-222-4997. That's 855-222-4997. Again, Augusta Precious Metals at 855-222-4997. So we've been talking about this for the past few weeks. Saira Rao, this far-left progressive, failed congressional candidate in Colorado, who moved to Virginia, by the way, to be safer, even though Virginia has better gun laws than Colorado. How about that, right? Anyway, she's back in the state of Colorado today, and I guess a couple of days this week for what she promised was this big sit-in, an act of mass civil disobedience. She compared this to the Selma March in the 1960s. This was going to be the moment, she said, when scores of white women, she really wants to enlist the help of white suburban women to pass gun control, not even gun control, to force Governor Polis to impose a ban on the sale of firearms, as well, again, as a ban on the ownership of all firearms. And today is the day that history was supposed to be made. She predicted there would be tens of thousands of individuals at the Colorado State Capitol in Denver this morning, starting at 5 a.m., again, as they showed up en masse to demand an end to our right to keep and bear arms. Well, the crowds that Saira Rao were promising didn't exactly materialize this morning. I mean, there are some people there. You can see this from a White Girl Learning on Twitter. There are some people out of the Colorado State Capitol. A few hundred, maybe, as of Monday morning. And maybe more will show up as the day goes on. But, just taking a look at these pictures, I mean, this is not exactly an overwhelming show of force here on the part of the gun prohibitionists, is it? A lot of green spaces there. You can see a lot of lawn on the Capitol grounds. Now, I will tell you, if you want to know what tens of thousands of people showing up for a rally or a protest about the right to keep arms looks like, well, I took this picture in January of 2020 on the grounds of the Virginia State Capitol in Richmond. This was a pro-Second Amendment rally. This was the lobby day hosted by the Virginia Citizens Defense League. I was a speaker there that year. It was so bitterly cold. I couldn't feel my feet when I took this picture. I mean, it was so bleeping cold, single-digit temperatures. And yet, there were, I've seen on the small side of the crowd estimates, 20,000 people. I've heard people say as much as 50,000 people. I can tell you that not only was basically every square inch of the part of the Capitol grounds that was open to the public, packed with gun owners, but the downtown area itself was just wall to wall with Second Amendment supporters, most of whom were from Virginia, but there were some folks from out of state. And the reason why they showed up in January of 2020 is because Democrats had just taken complete control of the state legislature. They had an anti-gun governor. And one of the first things that they did after winning the elections in November of 2019 was to propose a ban not only on the sale of so-called assault weapons, but the continued ownership of modern sporting rifles as well. Again, very similar to what Saira Rao is calling for and these anti-gun prohibitionists are calling for in Colorado. And this was the response from gun owners. Again, on a bitterly cold January day, they thronged the state capitol in Virginia. By the way, that bill ended up dying in committee. Governor Northam's proposal went nowhere, although Democrats in Virginia are still talking about a gun ban. As a matter of fact, one of the Democrats who voted against the ban in 2020, Senator Craig Deeds, proposed a gun ban of his own this past session. Thankfully, again, because of the memories of gun owners and the turnout in the 2021 elections, Democrats don't have complete control of the Virginia legislature anymore. They also don't occupy the governor's mansion in Virginia anymore, nor are they in charge of the attorney general's office in Virginia. Although we do have our elections coming up this fall. We'll be talking about that as we get closer to Election Day in November, because the gun ban plans are still very much afoot on the left. But again, that's what a crowd of 25, 30,000 people looks like. Not this. And I know those pictures are relatively early. Again, the sit-in kicked off at 5 a.m. But honestly, that's when you'd expect your hardcore supporters to be there, is right at the get-go, right? I mean, I'm almost positive that in Denver today, there are going to be some folks that will stop by the state capitol for an hour. They'll, way to go, we're with you in spirit, and they'll go and they'll grab lunch somewhere else. That'll happen. But again, this was supposed to be history being made. And so those folks who were there from the get-go, those are the hardcores, right? Those are the people who are showing up rain or shine because they are firmly committed to an end to gun ownership in this country. And there just weren't that many of them. Not considering the expectations that Saira Rao had set for, again, crowds of tens of thousands of people on hand in Denver. Governor Polis, by the way, already said, I'm not signing this executive order. This would be flagrantly unconstitutional. It's not going to happen. Said, listen, I'm with you in spirit. And, his press office sent out, a statement talking about all the gun control bills that the governors have signed this year. But we're not going to sign that executive action. So the protesters, I think, are going to leave disappointed. By the way, they're also not going to stick around until Governor Polis signs the executive order that they're asking him to, as Rao had said they would, as we reported last week. Now the protest / sit-in is expected to take place from 5 a.m. today until 8 p.m. tonight. And then everybody gets to go home. And then I guess they're supposed to come back tomorrow and do it again for about 12 hours and then go home and then do it again on Wednesday for about 12 hours and then go home and sleep in their own beds. There is already some goalpost moving before this event actually kicked off. But I'm very curious to see what Saira Rao has to say. Listen, I'm not, because I know the media is going to declare this to be a success, regardless of how many or how few people show up, regardless of the fact that the Governor Polis is not going to sign this executive action, right? They will do their best to pump up this event, to make it seem like, wow, this really was, something special and remarkable and truly a game-changing moment. I don't think it is. But I do think that we're likely to see more of these types of calls for outright prohibition and outright repeal of the Second Amendment, particularly after 2024. I think that the gun control movement is inching in that direction. The Heller decision, McDonald, and now Bruen last year, explicitly in Bruen, we had the court say, we're not talking about a second-class right. We're talking about a right that's just as important as your freedom of speech, as your right to worship as you see fit, as your right to be secure in your person and property, your right to keep and bear arms in self-defense is just as fundamentally sacrosanct as all of those other rights. Now, the anti-gun left obviously doesn't agree with that. Right now, in addition to trying to enact as many gun bans as possible around the country at the state level, the primary motivating idea for the left is to pack the Supreme Court, right? To take over next November, both chambers of Congress, keep Joe Biden or whoever the Democratic candidate is in the White House, and to pack the court. Not only to overturn Heller and McDonald and Bruen, but also to overturn or to bring back Roe v. Wade and to, again, find a right to an abortion and a number, emanation of a penumbra. I can't remember. They want to bring this back, and they want to get rid of our right to keep and bear arms. And packing the court right now, I think, again, is their first priority. But if they can't do that, if they fail to secure gains in the Senate, if they fail to take back the House, if Joe Biden does not occupy the White House in 2025, then I think you're going to start hearing the calls for outright repeal to grow louder. I don't think it's going to happen overnight, but I think that you will see a shift in the gun control movement because there aren't going to be many options left for the gun control movement. For decades, the anti-gunners have been trying to take as many bites out of our right to keep and bear arms as they can. You go back to the 1960s, the big gun control group was Handgun Control Incorporated. And the idea was we're going to ban handguns. Well, that didn't work. They got Washington, D.C. to pass a gun ban. They got Chicago to pass a gun ban. They failed in 1976 to establish a ban on handguns in the state of Massachusetts. Voters actually voted that down in 1976. And then Heller took that idea completely off the table. Handguns are protected by the Second Amendment. You can't ban them outright, as Washington, D.C. did. Chicago's handgun ban disappeared a couple of years later in 2010 in the McDonald case. Gun control advocates have been trying to ban modern sporting rifles, so-called assault weapons, of which there are about 25 million in this country. Not a insubstantial number, but not nearly as large as the number of handguns. So, honestly, over the decades, the gun control movement has lost ground. I know it doesn't seem like that, and it doesn't feel like that at times. But when you look at what they were demanding in the 1960s versus what they are demanding now, their pathway has actually become more narrow. And Bruen has completely foreclosed the types of prohibitionist policies that they want to put in place. So the Supreme Court remains at 9 justices, and the majority that believes correctly that our right to keep and bear arms is of fundamental importance remains in place. Gun control groups really aren't going to have anywhere else to go other than to actually start backing a campaign to repeal the Second Amendment. Now, again, the votes aren't there. And if Republicans, thwart their court-packing plans in the 2020 elections, well, Democrats aren't going to get a repeal of the Second Amendment through Congress, much less a majority of the states, 3/4 of the states, which would be necessary to repeal the right to keep and bear arms. But they're going to have to do something to keep their anti-gun base motivated. And as the courts take more and more of their policies off the table, they're going to have to go somewhere. And I think, again, we're likely to see more calls for outright repeal of the Second Amendment going forward, unless, that is, Democrats are able to pack the court next year during the 2024 elections. All right. Let's turn our attention now to today's Armed Citizen story, our good deed of the day, and our recidivist report. We'll start there with a case out of Tennessee, Madison, Tennessee, where a church usher ended up being assaulted on his way into the sanctuary over the weekend. As WSMV in Nashville reports, 72-year-old man had just parked his car at the Cornerstone Church. It was about 6:45 in the morning. He's headed inside the sanctuary. When I was walking towards the church, police said a stranger ran up to him without saying a word, hit him in the head with a handgun. He suffered a laceration to his ear. Usher, though, was able to wrestle the gun away from his attacker and threw it into his car. By the way, the 72-year-old Usher going up against the 23-year-old suspect here. A male witness called 911, and the attacker, identified as D'Angelo Lavender, approached the witness and grabbed the phone from his hand and then attempted to run. Another man then intervened, and those two physically restrained Lavender on the grass until officers arrived. Police said that the car Lavender used to drive to the church had been stolen from a driveway earlier that morning. And as it turns out, Lavender, already on probation for aggravated assault, a conviction back in 2020. Right now, he's being held without bond on a new assault charge, as well as unlawful gun possession, vehicle theft, vandalism, as well as possession of drugs. Don't know what Mr. Lavender's motivation was in attacking the church usher, but do know that he probably should not have been out on the streets, given the previous aggravated assault charge just a few years ago at the tender age of, well, he's just 23 now, so 20 years old. Today's armed citizen story from Towns County, Georgia, where a woman came home the other day to find a stranger in her home. Not only a stranger in her home, but a stranger wearing her husband's clothes. Yeah. The Towns County Sheriff's Office reported this just a couple days ago, but the incident actually happened back on May the 20th. They got a call that afternoon and found that someone had broken into several cars in the area. Then another call came in a short time later, reporting that a homeowner was holding somebody at gunpoint. According to police, the woman found Hunter Chase Adams at her front door when she arrived home, and he was wearing her husband's clothing. Thankfully, she had a gun, and she ended up holding Adams until deputies arrived. A second man, Travis Richard Foskey, arrested a short distance later. Both have been charged with one count of felony burglary, as well as more than 20 counts of felony entering an automobile. The armed citizen was able to protect herself from the home intruder and hold him until police arrived, not facing any charges, and thankfully completely unharmed in the encounter. Finally today, our good deed of the day, in the right place at the right time, willing and able to do the right thing. In New Jersey, two good Samaritans saving a family from a house fire. This was in South Brunswick Township. Authorities got a 911 call last Wednesday about 5:30 in the morning. When they arrived, they found the garage itself completely in flames. The family had already escaped the home. And when authorities talked to them, they said that they'd been sleeping when they heard banging on the front door in their bedroom windows. When they went to the door, they saw their 85-year-old neighbor, Santo Livio, along with another woman who's yet to be identified, warning them of the fire. So the family was able to get out of the house uninjured. Livio stated he has long been an early riser, first for work, and now in retirement. He said about 5:30 in the morning, he looked out his front door to see if any animals were in his yard. I've done that too when you get up early. You know, it's a nice, peaceful time of day. Maybe the squirrels are out there. Maybe the woodchucks. Anyway, he looks out his front door and he noticed puffs of smoke. Said he thought it was fog at first over the garage, but he stepped out and then he saw a woman walking down the street. He asked the woman if she saw smoke. And she said, yep. And so that's when they rushed over, started banging on the doors and windows. Livio said the family later came to his home to thank him for alerting them of the fire. Chief Raymond Hiduka said, I credit Mr. Livio along with the unidentified woman and their quick thinking and heroic actions with saving the family. So again, in the right place, at the right time, willing and able to do the right thing. Santo Livio, as well as this unidentified Good Samaritan, helping a family escape this terrible fire. And thankfully, authorities alerted early enough that it sounds like the damage contained to the garage and the home not a total loss. So not only a lifesaver, but a property saver as well. Santo Livio, we thank you for your very good deed. All right, that is almost all the time we've got for you here on this edition of Bearing Arms Cam & Company. I do want to let you know, though, what we've got coming up on tomorrow's program. Congressman Andrew Clyde from Georgia is going to be with us. Going to be talking with Representative Clyde this afternoon, but we'll share that interview with you tomorrow morning. He said something very interesting last week. He said that Republican leadership had reached out to him before the debt ceiling vote was held and said, listen, we know you got that House resolution about the ATF's pistol brace rule. And if you want us to bring that vote or that resolution to the floor of the House for a vote, well, you need to vote in favor of raising the debt ceiling. You need to vote in favor of this deal that McCarthy reached. Well, Representative Clyde was a no vote on that deal. And coincidentally or not, House Joint Resolution 44, which again is about the stabilizing brace rule, has not been called up for a vote in the House, even though it's passed out of a House committee and could be called to the floor at any time. So we're going to talk with Representative Clyde about this. I understand that this resolution, there's basically no chance of it passing in the Senate. Joe Biden's certainly not going to sign it into law. So it may be that, this is I don't want to call it a stunt, but it may be that this is more of a messaging bill than something of that actually provide real relief to gun owners simply because of the makeup of Congress. But I still think it's important that the House vote to condemn this new rule that, again, is turning millions of gun owners into criminals simply for maintaining possession of the stabilizing brace equipped, attached to their pistol, that they were told for more than a decade by the ATF that was perfectly fine and lawful to do. Now they're being told, all right, you either got to destroy that brace or you got to register your pistol as a short-barreled rifle under the National Firearms Act. Otherwise, you could be looking at a federal felony charge, 10 years in prison, tens of thousands of dollars in fines. I think the House should go on the record as objecting to this, even if the resolution doesn't have a much of a chance of actually undoing the ATF rule altogether. So the fact that vote, according to Clyde, being held up because GOP leadership doesn't like how he voted on the debt ceiling, I find that very problematic. And again, we're going to be talking with Representative Andrew Clyde. You can hear that conversation again on tomorrow's Bearing Arms Cam and Company. In the meantime, though, I would encourage you to check out bearingarms.com throughout the day. We're constantly updating the website with the latest Second Amendment news and information that you need to know about from all across the nation, whether it's new gun control laws, rather, in Hawaii and soon Connecticut, to armed citizen stories. Again, we've got you covered. And we certainly do appreciate your support. In fact, if you like what you see at Bearing Arms, I'd encourage you to become a VIP member. Not only will you get exclusive content, news stories, analysis you won't find anywhere else, but you'll get that warm, fuzzy feeling of knowing that you're supporting the independent pro-Second Amendment journalism that we do at Bearing Arms each and every day. And again, for that support, I truly do thank you, because it does make a difference. All right. We'll see you back here tomorrow for 2A Tuesday. Until, I guess, every day's, well, not 2A Tuesday. Today's a 2A Monday here on Bearing Arms. Until then, be well, be safe, and be free.